If you're interested in the how, please reach out to Lily. We will get somebody on the engineering and product side to walk a little bit more through specifically the steps that they took, the user journeys, exploring much deeper than I will in this session on the outcome-driven design, and then some of the technical components on the back end of how we put all of this together. Now, I'm going to cover a few of those at a pretty high level, but I did want to at least first establish why Liberty went down this path to begin with. So I have about a 45-minute to hour-long presentation, and I'm going to pack it into about 30 minutes. As Lily mentioned, if you have questions, please feel free to put them in the chat, and we will address them as they come up. With that said, we want to get started here today. Let's see if we get the mouse to work. Great. So why? What is this, right? We wanted to improve the employee experience, and it's our belief that all employees have purpose, passion, and potential. And if we can remove some of the noise from their day, that the employees will be more productive, more engaged, and generally, happier around their overall experience with the company. So that's where we want to start. As most of you know, Liberty Mutual is a multinational insurance provider, 55,000 employees globally. All of the tools that you'll see here today, were built in-house by our staff. They're held to enterprise standards. All of the information assurance and compliance risks and compliances that need to be undertaken to deploy a solution like this across an enterprise at our scale were met and achieved and then exceeded in subsequent releases, which we can talk about. This initiative itself has been recognized, really going all the way back to 2014, 2015, from a digital transformation perspective as part of a more holistic project around the internet and the tools in the lives, the day-to-day lives of our employees here at Liberty Mutual. And a few prominent folks have recognized this as worthy of awards, and we're pretty proud of this recognition that we've received. So let's talk about why and where this all started from. And it really kind of originates with workplace technology in general, right? The internet's starting to come alive in the early 2000s. Email is starting to become more prevalent, a predominant form of communication. It seems to be a very efficient and effective way to reach employees and reach customers. And so it becomes this de facto medium for business alerts, but also business communications and customer communications. And so at the time, it seems very logical that this is going to be the best path forward. We're going to use email to solve our communications challenges, and for a while it works really well. Some of the other technologies at the time, you're starting to see more instant messaging, but we still have these large monolithic systems in our organization, right? One big application to rule them all. May not do anything well, but it does everything that you need it to do. And that's great. This is coming out of many years of classic computing, right? As we move through the 2000s and think about how quickly the word cloud came upon us. And I know when you say cloud means something different to everybody, but what we're really talking about are these kind of SaaS or cloud-based applications hosted by somebody else. The tools out there that from productivity to finance to HR applications, and you start to see this kind of sweeping movement of not just these cloud applications, but these interconnected, wearables and devices in our own personal lives, right? And so business is a little bit slow to catch up, but business is still out there, trying to improve on the monolithic systems by adding these pointed solutions and making HR's experience a little better. And they're not thinking about it so much from the employee side, but really very specifically HR, or very specifically your finance team to solve their back office challenges, irregardless of the impact that might have on the employee experience. So what we end up with is this kind of conglomeration of all these applications across the enterprise, and there's redundancy in here. There's overlap, there's shadow IT creeping in as users try to kind of make their own journey as they go along to solve problems that the employer really has created for them. And you end up with this gentleman in the middle with this kind of like, can I just get the tools that I need to do my job? I have to go 17 clicks to submit my expense report. Like, why isn't this easier? Why isn't this more like my personal life, where you have Google or Siri or Alexa that's able to surface your calendar, give you directions, reroute you in the event of a traffic accident, right? So there's all of this going on in our personal lives, and none of this is reaching the enterprise, right? So this is kind of where we are today, and the last few years has really we've seen more and more of this. Actually, was on a call yesterday with a prospective customer, and we're going through and we're talking about all the challenges that they have, and they kind of just stopped in the middle and they said, we're in the process of creating this problem. We don't need Workgrid and this product that Liberty Mutual's built yet. Like we're still buying these pointed solutions. It's kind of like almost like this reality of we haven't gotten beyond it completely. There's still this need to kind of solve the smaller pain points inside of an organization, and that's being achieved through these SaaS applications. So this is the problem that we have at Liberty Mutual. When we sat down in 2013, it was really around some key areas in our employee population that we were trying to solve. Some of it was from sentiment analysis that we were doing, surveys, feedbacks, manager like kind of sit-ins where you just kind of go in and you kind of sit with the team and say, all right, what are some of the challenges that we have? How do you propose that we solve them? And what we noticed were these 10 kind of big bucket areas of issues, right? And so this is what we set out to solve. And we didn't solve them all at once. We didn't want to boil the ocean. What we really try to do is find the biggest problems, pare those down, and then look at those problems and say, okay, which one of these or few of these would be the easiest to achieve and have the broadest impact? What are the things that would really delight employees if we made it a little bit easier? And we'll show you some of the examples that we came up with in a little bit. So just going to pause real quick here. I got a question coming in, I think. Yes, yeah, certainly. So, it doesn't get any easier, right? And this kind of like this missing communications, the delayed approvals, the context switching. I mean, a lot of it goes back to email, right? Everything that we receive really ends up and dumps into our inbox. From there, it's up to us to sort it. So you create a rule, it goes to a folder. If you forget to look in that folder, who knows when you will get to it. Liberty Mutual actually had a really, and probably not a unique challenge, but a staggeringly glaring challenge where managers were actually delaying approvals. And so approvals for facility access, approvals for application access, hardware procurement. So they'd sit down on Friday, block off an hour or two, and they go through all their approvals. Well, if you had an employee that needed access to a building on Monday or Tuesday, and they aren't receiving that access, you can just think about how across such a large organization with that many employees and that many locations, how quickly that becomes a very risky financial proposition to continue doing the same thing that you've always been doing and not seeking out a new and better solution. So these are the problem statements. I'm sure everyone's kind of looking at go, yeah, we have at least a few of these, if not all of these in our own organizations. So what do those problems lead to, right? It's lost productivity. Employees are delaying tasks, they're wasting time. We're adding more and more applications to the stack every single day. So how do we solve for this? We're seeing, obviously these organization-wide problems. So we realized that we needed to think of a creative way, a different way, maybe not possible way at the time. And that's really kind of the message coming down from the top of the Liberty Mutual organization was, go do what's awesome, not necessarily what's possible. And so to have kind of that forward-looking vision was really impactful on the project itself. And if you think about the way that things have typically been done inside of large organizations, it's very much a service provider model. IT buys a product, they roll it out, they train the users use that product. As long as all the lights are green and there's no alarm bells going off, it's a good product. It works. It's working. But if you sit and you look at it from the employee's lens and sit in their chair for the day, it maybe isn't, and maybe it is, maybe it isn't, I guess you could say. So that's really what we set out to do, is look at it from the employee's view, sit in their chair, and they, throughout the course of the day, if I'm in sales, here are the systems that I want to interact with, and here's how I want to interact with them. Here are the things that are, flying in the face of the way I want to work and really making it a challenge for me to get my job done and be more effective. One more call a day across the course of a year is 236, I think it's 236 additional phone calls. And from a sales perspective, that's impactful, that matters. So even just a little bit of time every day can add up to make a big impact on the business. Additionally, what we see is, the 90% of the data in the world has been created in the last 2 years alone, right? We are awash with data, all sorts of data around engagement, activity levels, utilization efforts, it's just on and on and on and on, and it's not going to slow down, right? It's only going to get worse. We're only going to compound the issue as we add more systems and make it more efficient, and that's going to ultimately, feed into other more interesting models. But it's not really about this, like, it's not information overload, right? It's the lack of a contextual filter, a personalized filter that tells me what I need to know at the most critical times. So we've set out to, kind of imagine, right? Imagine if there was something in your day that would tell you what you needed to know, when you needed to know it, and ultimately with that information, what you needed to do. And maybe there's things that you need to know about next Friday. You need to know about them today, but it doesn't need to be it doesn't need to be the loudest alarm or the brightest light that's going off on your dashboard or, in your world. But it's just that, hey, as it gets a little bit closer, just make sure you're nudging me a little bit and reminding me that, I do have that appointment on Friday afternoon, or that approval is due, or that trip is coming up, and I should think about, making sure I bring that extra, cell phone charger or laptop cable or whatever it is, right? So there's little things. So we'll talk a little about Workgrid. I didn't kind of paint the overall picture. I mean, we really want to kind of keep this from the lens of Liberty Mutual. So what were some of the benefits that Liberty Mutual achieved through this? And it was, they were able to deliver to their employees this consumer-like experience. Our internal communicators were able to reach more employees. And we'll talk a little bit about what the digital assistant and why the digital assistant allows for better communications to employees, right? It's about giving them a reason to be where that message is, or being able to target them and not inundate them with noise or messages that aren't relevant to them. And there's some examples in the demo that we'll get to here. So we'll go through this. And as Lily had mentioned, we will share this deck out afterwards, as well as the audio recording if needed. So here we are today. We have this, our goal is this simplified and connected approach that meets employees where they are with the moments that matter. A few quotes from some industry pundits. This is happening, right? It's not about whether it's going to happen. It is happening. Gartner's drawing a direct correlation between your employee experience and customer satisfaction, product profitability, the productivity and work performance, and then worker retention, right? In a time of epically low unemployment, now more than ever, it's critical to be able to kind of focus on your employees and make sure you're retaining that talent that's so expensive to find and so expensive to retain. So Joe has a question. Do you integrate APIs from other SaaS providers? Yes. So that is at its essence exactly how we are bringing these systems to life through the digital experience platform. So we'll definitely cover that in more detail, but we are connecting to those underlying systems through the available APIs. All right, so experience X-Tech, or employee experience technology, as Gartner calls it, is a diverse collection of employee-facing applications designed to influence and improve the employee experience and organizational culture. Josh Burson, if you're familiar from the HR space, has an amazing quote that really kind of sums up what Liberty Mutual built and really what Workgrid is today. And this market has evolved pretty quickly, right? We've gone from portals to these case management to now on the far right, you have your employee experience platform. And it's a place that is unique and personalized to that employee. It's to be able to handle all sorts of things from pre-boarding to onboarding to the alumni of a company potentially, right? How do you communicate across that very broad spectrum of moments in an employee's journey through the organization? And the idea really is to sit here in the middle, and I have a better picture, a less IT focused picture, and more of like kind of a personal impact picture coming up here in a second. But it is that layer that allows you to kind of communicate across the disparate systems and across business units to create this this experience that is based off of the user's journey, the outcomes that they want to achieve, and not necessarily this siloed approach where everything that you do requires the institutional knowledge to get it done. So we know employee experience matters. We talked about the Gartner slide, and this is the kind of a few quick bullet points on that. And what we wanted to achieve was a more consumer-like experience that was mobile enabled and personalized. Second to watch of about 15 minutes here. So single unified experience layer, right? So being able to connect to those systems as an employee, I want one place to go to do as much as of those non-core work-related things as possible. I often explain it as, when you start with a new company, you are given the tools that you need to do your job, and then you have the tools and the systems that you inherit for being a part of that business, right? Whether it's the expense reports or time off requests, time and attendance systems, your finance applications, right? So can that experience layer, can that unified experience layer connect to all of those systems and create that one view that we all seek? We wanted communications outside of email. We wanted a quick and easy way to ask questions and get answers to all sorts of information. Where we see a lot of organizations starting at kind of like the HR questions and the IT questions. If you can take the top 20 most asked HR questions and the top 20 most asked IT questions off of the help desks for those respective business units, think about just the productivity impact alone that could have on the organization, and then provide a more consumer-like experience. Those little subtle nudges that your phone has, those notifications that let you know there's a message there. Being able to kind of work in that manner. We have another question. So let's see. Can you talk about AI and IoT features? So yes, so there is a native chatbot built into Workgrid. It is built on Amazon's Lex and Poly, and able to additional Amazon services. There are not really any IoT features. I have to think about that one for a little bit longer than I think I have right now to get into it. But we will talk quite a bit about the Workgrid chatbot and its extensibility across the organization and being able to communicate with other systems through type to text, and in the future, as devices become a little bit more hardened from a security perspective, potentially being able to ask Alexa to do certain things or provide or retrieve certain information for you. And 1 second here, just grab a sip of water. Great. So here's the slide and the image that I was talking about as far as kind of providing a better view into the digital employee experience layer. Obviously above you have your employees working. Below you have these underlying source systems that are, maybe part of that core functionality of their day, or the core tools for their day, and others are systems that they need to interact with as part of their job. So what happens when we start talking about this experience layer, right? So if I want to future-proof my employee experience, the process of change management across a large organization like Liberty Mutual is, let's just put it this way: the status quo of not going through that is probably easier than actually doing it. But the financial impact, or potentially the productivity impact of making that change, would be a nice to have, if only there was a way to protect against the chaos of change management inside the organization. That's one of the things that the employee experience layer does, right? So if I click here again, you see Cornerstone goes away, and instead I substitute in SAP success factors. Right, from the employee's perspective, nothing changes, right? Their notifications, the way that they consume content or receive content or interact with that system, it really doesn't matter to them what that system is. It's the information that they need in that system that they care about, right? They don't care if there's a new interface on the back end. So it allows you to either modernize legacy applications in some way, or allow the organization to make strategic business decisions. So again, we do this with Office 365, and again with Trello to Jira. So now you have new applications. The employees continue to work the same way. Their alerts and their notifications are through that experience layer that was built for them. This is the ideal world, right? Where you have this experience layer, you have HR, comms, IT, finance, procurement, really all on the same page and operating as one unit. Oh, I'm missing this slide there. Maybe it comes up later. There's another slide that shows us in a much more siloed approach, which is more the way that we operate today, right? This is what we want to strive for. This is what we want to do. We want to break down the silos that exist, and the experience layer allows that to occur. So I mentioned it at the beginning, we do have kind of a separate deck that's a lot more technical and kind of gets into some suggestions and strategies for outcome-driven design. It is something that Workgrid does work with customers on, as to how do we do this following the agile methodology. But for today, we're going to talk about it at a fairly high level. From this example here, if you think about your own existing systems and how you work today, you do have, if you were going to take time off, what would you need to do? Where would you need to go? And how long would it take you to achieve a time off request? And that's what we see here on this slide, right? There's 4 or 5 different systems at a minimum. You have your HR, you have your finance system. You maybe have to set up an out of office reply, let your manager know, set all this up, right? But from an outcome-driven design perspective, is it possible to give the employee one place to go and allow that system through the underlying APIs to communicate with the back end, right? The system knows I have time to take. I can see it there. I register the amount of time. It goes to my manager for an approval. My manager has their digital assistant that they can click approve. That sets off the set of workflows in here. And then, as the day comes up, my out of office is set, my team's notified, and on my vacation to Cabo I go. So one example of some of the design thinking that we use to get to the micro apps and some of the processes that the employees are going to really enjoy. So we'll talk a little bit about the feature overview here. There's actually a third one that is just coming out. So we have this meets employees where they are, as I mentioned. So the internet toolbar that can fit on any internet. The mobile application, so mobile first design, very responsive. And more recently, and in alpha right now, for internal testing, is a desktop application. So depending on the best way or where your employees spend their day, we should be able to meet them at that spot. When I talk about Workgrid and really what Liberty Mutual built, it kind of can be broken into four pillars, four components. The first one are your smart notifications. So the things that I need to know throughout the course of my day, the things I need to do throughout the course of my day. So it could be an approval, it could be, really approvals can be really broad. So expense approvals, time off requests, hardware procurement approvals. The micro apps, as I had mentioned, so that the time off request, pay slips, people search, time planner, all sorts of neat kind of things that can be done. And the nice thing about the Workgrid platform is really it's open and extensible. So there are SDKs, so you can build your own micro apps, you can build your own connectors as needed. We can potentially talk about that. The next one is the chatbot, as I had mentioned, and then a newer component to this is workflow and tasks. So a good example of a workflow is onboarding. So most organizations have maybe let's say 10 tasks, maybe a lot more, but I'll use 10 as an example that every employee starting in the organization has to do. You have to fill out these forms. You have to attend this compliance training. You have to register for parking, whatever it might be. Go get your picture taken for your badge access. Then your department has tasks, right? So how do you bring your organization-wide level tasks, your department level tasks, and maybe facility level tasks, whatever it might be, into one place, and then trigger those tasks based off of who I am and when I'm starting, those sorts of things. So a pretty neat an easy way to build that out. And onboarding is just one example. There's lots of moments like that inside of an organization that can be used. So I've got about 5 minutes. It's enough time to do a very quick high-level demo of the Workgrid product. I will take questions throughout, but if there aren't any right now, I'll just go ahead and jump in. So the first thing I like to call out as I move into the demo phase of this is Navit Financial is any internet page, right? So we're not supplying this this page here. This is just a representative of maybe what your intranet looks like. On the left side is the Workgrid toolbar, which is the product that Liberty Mutual built, and is what's in existence today for all 55,000 employees. So I usually like to start backwards, from the bottom up, and I do that because it's really these are the pieces about why the employee wants to be there. So why do I go to the intranet? Well, a few things. I can see my pay slip, so that's a pretty important one. This receives over 40,000 hits every 2 weeks inside of Liberty Mutual. So immediately you're starting to get more eyeballs on the internet. People are consuming more content. They're engaging with more content. So that's bringing people here. My profile, I recently moved from Pennsylvania to New Hampshire. I was able to quickly go into my profile category here, change my information. And that has, from moving from a state that has a state income tax to a state that has no income tax, you can imagine how quickly I was, in here changing that information as soon as I got to New Hampshire. I can see my time off balance. I can also schedule time off. I can see my team's time off as a manager, right? So it now allows me to start planning things a little bit more efficiently and effectively. Honestly, if you were to ask me what the systems were that are used behind the scenes at Liberty Mutual, I could probably name one or two. I know that we use Chrome River for expenses, and I think we use Oracle, right? So it's as an employee, it's nice to not have to know those sorts of things. people search, right? So I can come in here and I can search for folks on the team, or across the organization. So once I'm here, well, from a communicator standpoint, what makes this interesting and relevant? It's the ability to target communications and curate communications based off of the things that we know about our employees. So if you think about the things that we know, you could start with Active Directory, so we know what org and groups they belong to. You could look at HR. You can say, we know whose manager they are. We know what office they're in. Facilities management, maybe, what buildings they have access to, where they can get in and out of. So now you can start to do interesting things with those attributes that allow you to communicate to one group or multiple groups of people, but not necessarily everybody. So now when I see a notice showing up in my Workgrid toolbar, I know it's relevant to me. I know it's something that I should be seeing, and whether it's an organization-wide communication, like we've seen recently with some of the current events that are going on, alerts and awareness around travel and things we should be doing or shouldn't be doing. Visitor access to buildings, that sort of stuff is now top of mind. It's coming right through. It's not buried in email. I can't tell you after I come back from 2 or 3 meetings back to back how many emails I actually have. And you go, let's just try to find the most relevant ones, and this really kind of alleviates some of that. So that's helpful. The to-dos. So these are the things that are coming from those systems that are events that I can interact with, and it's asynchronous. So as I click on, this request for a SharePoint site, I'm actually approving this in real time. It's going and it's communicating that information through our API connectors and our connector catalog back to the backend source system. And now I'm done with it. I don't need to see it anymore. A great example of this is Concur. So I can see an expense report. If I needed to, I can click and I can go back into the system, right? So if there's something here that doesn't resonate, doesn't look right, or I need more detail, I can provide a direct link back into the underlying source system. And then here's a quick example of some of the, we'll see how well this is built out. I haven't been on this one in a while, but the onboarding tasks. So things like get access to a system or meet my mentor or buddy, log in with email, have lunch with the team. And we can trigger these off of dates and times or different events that are occurring inside the business. And as I mentioned, it's not just about employee onboarding. It's any workflow or group of tasks that employees or groups of employees need to see. From a manager view, you can see, let's say you hire 5 new people, you can see who's completed which tasks, kind of like percentage complete, maybe who needs some help or who might be struggling. And coming in the near future will be kind of this idea of where you can reassign tasks. So as a manager, maybe there's somebody on my team I would like to make sure the new hire goes to lunch with. I can assign a task like that, right? So some flexibility about how you engage with that. And then I have the ability to create my own tasks. And so the last one, with a little under a minute to go, we have the chatbot and the digital assistant, right? So one of the things about chatbots in business and in general is knowing what it knows. There's no real key, like going to the internet and searching that is not ideal. It's kind of self-defeating. So what we've done is we kind of put this little learn more in here and see what kind of tasks and see what types of topics the chatbot knows about. So I can ask all sorts of questions, and it has the ability to do things. Liberty Mutual, and we can get into that case studies probably in another call, but has built out the chatbot to unlock the iPhone. So if I were to lock myself out of my phone, I can say unlock phone. It knows who I am since I'm already authenticated into our corporate systems. It knows what devices I have because we have that information on our employees, and it can actually use the mobile device management software that we use on the back end to trigger an unlock, right? So now I've saved myself time and the embarrassment of calling help desk. I don't need to go through the IQ test of what my number is and where I am, what my telephone number is, and all those sorts of things that they have to ask you to validate and verify who you are, and even though they have it. I save the person on the other end of the phone from having to take that call, right? So now I'm saving my time, I'm saving their time, and I just get to go about my day. As just one very simple example of the level of integration that can be done with the chatbot. So I've thrown a lot out there. It's 30 minutes on the nose. I will just pause. If there's anybody that has questions and you want to take yourself off of mute, you're free to do that. If you prefer to do it through chat, I'm happy to take questions through chat. And as I mentioned, we will share this out. Great. Well,
Hey, this is Joe. Thank you for the brief and the demo. It looks really useful, and uh, I'll share it with some others when you send the briefing. Thank you.
Joe, really appreciate the questions. I appreciate you joining us this afternoon. We're here to help in any way that we can. So thank you again.
Okay. Have a good evening.
Thank you. You too.
Mhm.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining. If there are any questions, I'm sure Lily or whoever may have passed the invite over to you will reach out. But I hope you all have a great day and we'll talk again soon. Thank you and goodbye.